This call is going to be a similar style to the last one, where there might be a couple other folks who will drop in and drop out. It is the 22nd of December, so I think a lot of other people are turning off for the year. So we'll probably have this be our last attempt at a collective call until maybe mid-January when everyone's back together. That's probably when we'll hit the ground running, because it seems like everyone's taking some vacation time, probably much needed anyway. Anyhow, I wanted you two to meet. This is gonna be fantastic. So what we could do is this introduction. We can go around, say hi, drop in, whatever we want to talk about today, and any ideas you might have for the forum here. So we're always going to co-facilitate this. So I think that's a good idea for us to come around and bring any ideas to the table about what this meeting might look like. So Lucian dropped, but I'm sure I'll be right back. I'll pass it to you, Marc.
Yeah, I mean, sure. In terms of intro, name is Marc Angelo. I am a passionate storyteller. I'm a farmer and just somebody who's been building community for a long time. I would say I'm quite geeky in the world of all things technology, storytelling, bringing messages to masses, understanding what moves and the trends that we see online and all the different things that are going on there. But my highest excitement is to kind of ground that into reality. And so over the last 9 years, and 2022 will be our 10th season, transforming a GMO corn and soya field into a eco-village, physical community, 20 minutes outside downtown Montreal, 88-acre property that's literally, former GMO corn to now a full-on farm, an organic farm, and more importantly, I think community. It's really a group of people coming together. So I have very strong kind of sense of the utility and the challenges that come with scaling community and trying to unify people in particular, directions, doing all of that with kind of a bootstrap startup mentality and what is a very long-term and very difficult business and let's say, build landscape, which is like to restore and regenerate soil from devastated, essentially full-on devastation to where we're at now is a very long, tedious process, and it's not one that is normally economically rewarded, at least very short term. And so it's a beautiful mix. So that's who I am. That's what I do. I'm passionate about.
I absolutely love this, and there's a lot of things I love about what you said. Can you guys hear me? Weird, it didn't change the view. Anyway,
yeah, I hear you.
Sitting here staring at myself talking, it's confusing me. I would love to be able to actually do some studies on seeing if we can produce more food. We certainly will, more quality and nutrition and everything that really matters, but people care about quantity. It'd be interesting if we could actually produce a higher quantity using the layered approach, trees, etc., than we could with a traditional cornfield if we transformed into a village. So if we could say we could produce more food and house people, provide joy, meaning, purpose, everything else we're producing in the village, right?
Well, I think you might, I guess it boils down to whether you think it's like, yeah, I guess it boils down to what you consider to be more food, meaning if like, a traditional farm will produce a ton of corn or a ton of garlic or a ton of this or a ton of that, it doesn't matter, but you can't sustain it off that, right? Like you're not going to just eat garlic or just eat corn essentially. And so the idea is like, I think there's no doubt about the fact that regenerative farming or small scale organic farming can produce more. It produces the lifestyle and the actual freedom that I think people are after. And that inherently then leads to more of everything else, right? Like more art, more time for community, more time for relationships, more time for connection, more time for working out, challenges, traumas, problems, building new ecosystems, learning about things like Web 3.0 or whatever it is, like, not to buzzword this, but like the idea of if you can provide more within a small community, you spend less time leaving that community to go get what you need, and more of the resources stay within that community. So I think it's like there's no doubt that you can produce more food. It's also a question of time scale, right? How long? What time scale are you talking about more food in? Because plant a fruit tree today, what depending on let's say a 2-year-old fruit tree, you probably still wait 5, 6, 7 years before you get your first fruit. But then you'll have
Excellent
fruit
point.
for fucking ever, right? So it's a time scale question as well. But yeah.
Well, we'll run a 50-year study, and we'll just assume the results are going to be in our favor and start publishing early. I think that's what they didn't do. Didn't they just do that with the vaccines recently? They published safety studies without having the
and
50
then said they're
and
going
10
to
years to
release
do
the
it.
data in 75 years.
All right. Anyway, I'm annoying. Pass it to Lucian. Thanks, Marc. You're fantastic.
Great stuff. Hey, Marc. Great to meet you. Love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And Rieki. Yeah. So bit of an intro. Similar space, but I've been focused on really connecting a lot of different coalitions, community projects, like teams working on non-incremental transformation. And I've been doing that in the form of the United Planet game, which is a immersive reality game where we tell stories from 2030 about how we did it. So we essentially reverse engineer the narrative for the future to create a unifying narrative. And my background, I spent 10 years running a software company that was building online communities. So I've been really a kind of community architect, digital community architect, particularly around like how do we support multi-stakeholder initiatives and coalitions and communities coming together around a shared purpose. And I took that into Savannah Foundation, created a open source stack for communities to organize, and then realized really that wasn't where my kind of biggest contribution I can make, because a lot of people were building the software, and I decided to, instead of building, like partner with those already creating the software such as Hypha, and rather focus on the cultural layer of how do we bring together the stories, the talent, and the capital necessary for the Regenesis. And so that's kind of where that leads me to where we are today. We're early on in the Up Games rollout, but we've developed 16 planetary leagues, which each one we bring teams together to showcase solutions, and it's really like an award ceremony in the future right now. But what I'm keen to do is tokenize it now, create the kind of meta United Planet DAO, and then start to create the ability for individual teams to have their own their own tokenized team, if you like, within the game within the game ecosystem. And so I think this 12 village initial village offering could be a really good way for us to experiment and pilot with how an individual project could tokenize what they're doing through a kind of meta DAO. And I'm just really interested to be in partnership, prototyping, and figuring this out.
Amazing. That's awesome. Beautiful.
We all kind of forgot because we did the intros, but the other part was co-crafting what this conversation for the next 45 minutes is going to be about. I wanted to talk about self-governance and how we can structure how we're collaborating together. What does that actually look like? How can we be effective and productive without having too many meetings? Because I don't want to just give us the sense of feeling that we're doing something just because we schedule a bunch of meetings and we talk a whole bunch. Right. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to figure out a structure and pattern about how we can move and achieve without gathering too much, and what that actually looks like for the next couple of weeks and months as we're putting this together. So that was one thing I wanted to cover. And that's it. So I will pass it to either one of you. And my intention was for you two to meet, which we just checked off. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Go for it.
Go ahead, Marc.
No,
go ahead. You go. You went first.
Yeah, I mean, my intention is just to continuously wrap my head around where you guys are at, and who the team is, and what the intentions are behind that. Just continuously understanding that, and then always keeping some level of like a next step piece and evolution that's kind of consistently going forward in that. You know, I'm like very clouds and dirt, right? And what I mean by clouds and dirt is like I can spend a lot of time like pontificating about like what those things look like, but I'm very focused on trying to roll out the pieces of this slowly but surely in 2022 at our farm. And so I don't know what the stages of that look like, and I don't know exactly who's involved or who's supporting and who's doing what and what support I need to bring or don't need to bring to the table. But essentially my my intention is just to like really continuously understand what is being discussed within this space and this community and you know this this group that's forming, and then figure out like how do I take the smallest steps or the, you know, even sometimes the biggest leaps towards it being grounded and grounded and grounded, and like iterating and testing essentially as we move, knowing that building an ecosystem like this takes a lot of time, and we're never going to have it all planned out. Right, like it's going to in a sense evolve or grow like an ecosystem is my intuition, but yeah, those are my intentions.
Yeah, I'd love to build on that and just, Reiki, I'd love to hear from you where things are at now with the focus of Haifa, like where you're at with it, and you know, where we're at on the fundraise and what's needed here. And then, you know, just my interest here is also like, how can we move forward with the alliance between Haifa and United Planet, and us be a kind of test case to bring this prototype environment to everybody that's been going through the game so they can utilize it.
Ooh, so I think it might then be helpful to go over. I wanted to do this with the rest of the people that are part of this founding. So I know that we're probably all feeling that as a want to go over the current vision, where we're at, where all the pieces are. But we're recording this so the people who weren't here could watch this, and we can just do it again next time, I guess, with the other players. So let me just share a little bit of an overview, and I think I can answer both of your guys's desires here. So I'm going to go over this thing that I sent you both, the diagram. Did both of you guys watch? I know there's a lot of calls and videos and everything I sent you. Did you happen to get through them all? I want to know how much context to give you guys. It's okay if you didn't, but
yeah, I didn't get through them all. I had one of them scheduled for the weekend, and then I got COVID, so I was not just not feeling good. But I have some, like, my context is growing rapidly for sure.
Okay, so medium context.
I feel I was there for a number of them, so I feel like I got the majority of the content, and I read the overview, or at least I read most of it, of the overview that you shared.
Okay.
With the initial village offering vision.
Yeah, so let me just go over that super quick, and I'll tell you how I'm kind of seeing it and where, yeah, seeing all the pieces kind of fit in. I just got to load this, so I'll give it some moment for it to come up. Do you guys see my screen here yet? Oh, just giving me the spinning wheels. I don't even have that many tabs open either, so it gives. All right, I don't think it's wanting me to use this to explain. Okay, here we go. Lucian, you're asking like where this fits in with Haifa. I think this is Haifa and Seeds, both really powerful next steps. So I'm trying to bring in the energy of both of those projects, all kind of behind this village move too. And I'm looking at putting together the core team who are all, playing different pieces in this launching of a village, and set up a new organization. Maybe it's part of Haifa if it fits in there nicely. Maybe it's part of Up if it fits in there nicely. Maybe it's its new thing that all of us come together and we create, which I'm kind of biased for, because then we get to create on, a level of foundation where we're all bringing different pieces. For example, I'll be, representing Haifa and Seeds and kind of bringing those pieces, but Marc, you're bringing Valhalla and all of your wisdom around, setting up villages. Lucian, you're bringing Up, etc. So we might come together and call this the Regenerative Village Alliance or whatever we end up calling it, right? So that's kind of how I see this new organization coming in. I see us getting funding for what we're doing by taking a percentage of all the crowd pooling of the resources from all the projects we're helping. So we help a project come in, we crowdfund with them, we help them do their storytelling, we're putting it all together, we're obviously working with them and helping them succeed. They give us 5% of what they raised, in US dollar equivalent value, and we get 5% of the total tokens of the village. And by we, I mean this meta organization we're forming, which is also a DAO. It's just we're the only ones a part of it at the beginning. And that's holding that treasury funds. So it's kind of like 5% of every project comes back into the meta commons, which is building the tools and resources and narrative and infrastructure for the whole movement, right? So I don't know necessarily, how we legally set these up or, what they actually look like and, what we named them or any of that. This is just, I'm seeing the structures we need and I'm kind of wanting to go through that creative process with that core team so that we're all equally invested and, it's all of ours and we feel the same, foundership rather than we're coming into someone else's project, right? Because that's the energy I feel like we need from all the different founders coming to this right now is that founder energy, which is what I was going to say about how we create together. It'd be really awesome if each of us were just really clear in the piece we needed to bring and then we were just bringing it and we didn't need to, waste a lot of time and coordination costs. All right, so then the thing I think we can do is come together, structure ourselves, name ourselves. I think that shouldn't take too much time, I hope, especially because we have some models to help with that. And then let's help villages come together. So I've talked about this a little bit before. Let's find 12 physical villages. I think Valhalla is already one of them by design. Lucian, the one you're working with, is already one of them by design. I think a lot of the founders are actually bringing a physical place with them. So with the 7 of us, we already have like 7 places and they're kind of neatly scattered already, which is great. So we'll find like 5 different other ones. And very likely each one of the 5 villages is going to bring some person who's going to be part of the core team too. It's likely how the core team's founded by having someone bringing wisdom from one of the projects running all these tools as well.
Do you think they're all going to launch at the same time? Like, are you trying to fund across the board for all 12 at the same time in a sense? Like, I guess, is there, do you think there's like maybe a, yeah, I guess I'm just curious. I can just leave the question there and see what you think about that.
Yeah. In my vision, it's not clear. It could be really interesting having, one marketing and one big crowdfunding page showing all 12 projects at the same time. So everyone who shows up could find the one that's right for them. I think that could actually capture more value than, I show up, I'm in North America. I'm like, this is dope. Awesome. Oh, all the projects are in Africa. I'm never going to Africa and I'm not going to invest in this, even though I love the vision. If we had somewhere from each region that we can do a global campaign and people can come in globally, I think that's really great. It's really grounding, and running with all 12 projects, especially if they're all culturally diverse at the same time, I think is really valuable as well for, learning and the narrative. So a big part of me is leaning towards doing all 12 at the same time, but that could be a mistake. And maybe it makes sense to focus one at a time. So I'm open. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the upside is, like you said, there's more likelihood of finding a project that maybe speaks or resonates to a person based on their geographic location or a million other different factors. But the downside is that none of them are funded fully. Right. The downside is that somehow we don't and then, or the other downside is that we're not launching that funding because we're waiting for everyone to kind of hit the bar of like all the necessary information. That's the only other thing. The benefit of launching a few versus all 12 is that the first you can then pass on the learnings and the lessons to the next round or something like that. But I mean, I don't have an answer. I'm only asking questions so much as yeah, I guess it's like, it's also a question of like who the villages are or what, you know, how ready they are. Ready meaning, do they have a story in place? Do they have graphics and, you know, like how secure is their foundation, if that makes sense? Secure meaning, how clear are they on even being able to communicate elements of those, the needs or what they're creating, who they are, what they're doing, what they're transforming, how they're going about it, so on and so forth.
Do you have all that written down? Like the basic minimums of storytelling, like what you were just saying just there?
I mean,
Question, could you, because I love what you're
Sure.
saying, and I think I'm going to propose an idea, and that's that we say we're going to launch on this date with as many of the 12 as possible. And
Sure.
if you want to launch with us, here's your minimal viable launch kit you need to have completed, in which case they can have a checkbox of all of those things you're just running off.
That they have to, yes,
Yeah.
that's fair. Yeah, I can create that by creating a standard by just doing it for Valhalla, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. 100% makes sense. Because right now I'm also putting together a list of what we need. So I think one of those things is a list of what villages need to launch. So this is kind of like their launch kit list.
Yeah.
And if you have that, then you go live with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
This also is going to build commitment, which I think is really awesome. It builds drive. It makes it more serious.
And it makes a gate before it's like, oh, you're not just coming here to get funding but to have no work to do in a sense, or no, you have to kind of communicate something clearly enough and and like you said, it builds a commitment that they have to show up in some way, shape, or form before. Yeah, it makes sense.
And last piece, because I think we have a lot more than 12 projects who want to be part of it. So what if we do like a first come, first serve? If you finish your launch kit, then you're part of the launch team. The first 12 to finish are part of the first cohort, and we'll go from there.
That's fair.
What do you think, Lucian?
So I think, sorry, I'm just in the airport and need to wear a mask. So I think the one way we could potentially do this is actually to run it as a game of readiness, of like project readiness, and then create an evergreen model where others can follow. But just say we're going to give the first 12 teams that go through this, like we're gonna work with you to showcase and build the minimum tools, and that we're seeking like the best projects. We can take in more than 12, but there's going to be 12 finalists or something like that. We create a game, sort of a little bit of you know, a community effort to find the highest quality projects. Would be one thing that I think we could potentially do with United Planet, and that could be a way to sort of help activate the communities in this, and create a roadmap for others to apply, necessarily get through.
Yeah, and would UP be putting together educational courses now potentially to help groups through the launch kit and filling it out?
Well, I think this would be something for us to do together. You know, from like, if we did it as a game scenario, it would be like we're looking to create an awards to showcase the best community initiative. This is where I think a village can be misinterpreted, or I don't know whether, we had this conversation on the last call. It's like, I don't necessarily know that all of these projects that we're going to open ourselves up to are all would necessarily fit the bill of a village offer. You know, some might be real estate investments, some might be, you know, community houses, some might be educational projects, etc. And so, so that's just one of my questions as well.
My like intuition is the more projects that we're trying to fund and support, the more complexity, complications, and like the less effective the story, if that makes sense, right? Like what I mean by effective is like one of the challenges we have in the kind of eco village space is that like everyone wants to unify everyone with everything for all things, right? And then what happens is that we're so caught in the story of like trying to get everyone to the same table, to a same bar, rather than just saying like kind of like what you were saying, why don't we just set the bar, and when people hit the bar, then they're in some way, shape, or form. And if they hit a particular standard, and then there's a council of people that say, okay, yeah, this hits the standard, and we're like good with that, then they're just in at that point, if that makes sense. So that at least you're not holding back the people who are ahead, who are like, look, guys, we're ready to go. I think that it's like it's setting a minimum rather than like a waiting for everyone to be at the start line at the same time.
Well, so I'm blending these things. I think another pattern emerged here, which could be seasons for what we're launching. So the first cohort is focused on regenerative villages. And this is people coming together to meet the needs of an ecology and themselves within a certain environment, right? But what we're doing here can apply for a lot of different contexts. So maybe next season is, you know, neighborhoods gone green or whatever, you know. And it's about neighborhoods coming together to set up a new type of, you know, homeowners association that's around, you know, regenerating their community or whatever, you know. But each season could be a different type of project that we're pulling together if we see that demand and we want to go that way. That way we can bring that in, Lucian, and have that diversity, but each season has very clear storytelling around what, you know, the vision for what those projects look like. And right now there's so much desire and drive that I think we can spend a lot of time on the Regenerative Village project for the next couple of years and not run out of you know desire for that particular vision, because there's a lot of it. And you know, the side benefit of it being necessary for humanity to survive on our planet. So you know, whatever.
Small side benefit.
Yeah, so I'm actually taking all these notes down in our thing because I think these are really powerful patterns for us. So beautiful stuff. What do you think, Lucian? Bring it back to you.
Yeah, I hear you about the focus, and I wonder if, like, you know, I don't want to be biased here, but I wonder if one of the ways we could solve this is by having a like game focus area. It could be like one of the ways that we filter is each league has its own DAO of DAOs essentially, and what we enable to happen is each project can create their own funding proposals within a bigger pot, and then we can kind of that way we can coordinate if people want to invest in regenerative villages. They can have a whole ecosystem of projects that they can invest in, either one by one or across the spread of them. I mean, that's the holy grail I see that needs to happen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm also thinking of the, you know, the governance structure of what we're setting up then. So let's say we launch this Regenerative Village Alliance and we're getting 5% of every project that's funded through this is coming back to this Alliance treasury. Then do all the projects and everyone who's part of any project all have a fractional voice? I mean, maybe it's smaller than the core team, or maybe it's equal, whatever, but do we all have a voice in how we use that central treasury too? So then that treasury is like a central coordinator of funds to either set up new projects, you know, support those who most need it. because that way we're pooling our resources and being more effective. Because that actually, it solves the concern a little bit that Marc, you were sharing, which is like, okay, well, if we do 12 projects and we, 20% fund all of them, then we don't fund any of them. But if we're actually pooling all the funds together, we 20% fund 12 projects, then we fund the first two, and then we vote as a community, which is the first two we fund, and then we keep doing it that way. So I think it gives us that, flexibility. But also answering that if we don't fund a project, I think we need to have soft caps where we say the project's only funded if we reach, 1.2 million or whatever it is anyway. And that could go on for a year and a half, and we can just hold pledges, and we can just wait until we have, 1.5 million pledged, and then cool, call it all in and start. That might take a while. So I kind of like that idea too, of being able to have any project show up and fundraise indefinitely till they reach their soft cap and then they launch.
I mean, another way of doing it would be that we fund them from this concept of like future financing the organization. So they set milestones, and each milestone has got a funding requirement. And the project is able to finance itself in a step-by-step way through funding milestones. And that we certain people will be happy to unlock that committed funding earlier than others, for example. Some people might say, okay, I'm willing to fund this project once it hits this level. I mean, there's oh, can you hear me?
Yep, keep going.
So I wonder how this could be designed from a sort of ecosystem of DAOs that would give these projects like a new financing marketplace, and a cooperative financing marketplace. So how they could be aligned together to be supporting each other's fundraise, because in doing so they're being supported. It's easier in some ways to raise for 12 projects if you all put your marketing efforts together than it is to raise for 12 individuals.
Yeah.
And you shouting. So how can we kind of get that effect here from a capital attraction perspective?
Well, that for me is exactly why it's attractive to launch all 12 at the same time. Because then we are focusing all of our marketing into the same spot. And again, if marketing for someone in Ibiza was seen by someone on Facebook in America, but they're like, "Ooh, I'm not part of that project." But if they go to the shared page that shows all of them, then they see, wait, Valhalla's here and I'm living right next to them. Awesome. Or whatever. So yeah, I definitely agree that, aligning on marketing makes a lot of sense for all the projects. Sam, hey, way to drop in. Lucia and Marc.
Hey, how's it going?
Sam, you come in at a really good time because you probably love this conversation. But maybe what we could do is just, Sam, I can give it to you and you can just give a real quick intro on the village building stuff and kind of where you come from. Just to give you context, we were just talking about how we're launching our ecosystem, similar conversations, RVA, whatever we were calling that now, Closer was having a few months back. But really, we're trying to get, alignment between a lot of eco-village projects, try to bring 12 of them together and then move together as a whole. I'll pass it to you, Sam. You have enough context here.
Thanks. Basically what we're trying to do is create replicable systems that any community, any village can set up in order to set up the community, purchase land, do the governance, do the community kind of management. Kind of what we're trying to do in V1 is be like a drop-in replacement for Mighty Network, but then add all the features to manage a physical space. And then the goal is to, over time, transition that into being Web3, so that the data can be sovereignly owned by the communities themselves rather than relying on some third party. So yeah, that's what we're working on, and we're just getting started. We received a grant last week, so now we're going to be like fully focused on that in the next 6 months, building out the MVP by March. And see where we take it from there. So what are you guys working on?
Building an eco-village, telling great stories, and spreading really powerful messages about this around the globe. But eco-village in this case is 88 acres outside of downtown Montreal, 20 minutes away. So it's very, it's kind of, to my knowledge, the closest eco-village to a city center or major city center on the planet. And so it's really—
What's the name?
Valhalla.
Valhalla. I think maybe I saw it. Yeah.
Very possible. We went viral many times over the years, but so it's just, yeah, it's transforming lots of different, GMO corn and soya field into a community, but also a functioning farm, a functioning village.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey Sam, great to meet you. I'm based in Ibiza and started the Up game, the United Planet game, which is essentially an immersive reality game to reverse engineer the future, to play the future and meet each other there, meet each other as our best selves in a space where we've done it. We speak about the goals that we have in the present tense about how we got there. And so it's a layer, it's like a cultural layer that we can bring into the regenerative movement and support projects with articulating their fundraising needs based on them sharing their solutions from the future. And so
awesome, amazing.
Coalitions that are coalitions of focused on systemic change, that to bring those organizations together and go through this kind of methodology and then be able to launch DAOs and fundraise based on those activities.
Super cool. Yeah, I think I heard a little bit about what you did, what you do on the last call that Rieki shared. Yeah, super nice to hear. Have you met Livia Tirone from Portugal?
I think I met her on the Regen Rebuild gathering. I think she
you met her at Rebuild, okay. Yeah. So I organized the Rebuild, and she organized the backcasting for us in Portugal, actually. So that was really fun.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay.
I'll kind of ground this in. So the reason why I'm bringing you in here, Sam, and why I'm trying to bring all of us together is we're all sharing that same vision of regenerative villages. I've got a baby on the way. I want to live in one now. I'm done talking about it. So my best bet of being able to live in all the ones I want to is to help them kind of launch all across the globe. So that's kind of the idea is. Something else that sparked it is there's a lot of value and liquidity in the Web3 space right now that's looking for safe assets to go into. Looks like we're kind of entering into a bear market. So it's kind of an ideal time to be able to launch land-backed tokens. And we just tested this model launching the Wyoming Do LLC. So Wyoming just launched beginning of July of this year, the ability to have a DAO LLC. So basically a legal liability company that can own assets that's governed by a DAO and however the DAO is set up. So you can make all of this possible. So we just tested that out with buying land and then selling it and seeing how that process went. So this is what we want to do is then help villages all come together and crowdfund, or rather I'm trying to come up with a new name for this because securities restrictions, and I don't want to be selling equity and securities necessarily, unless we go through the right regulations. So I'm thinking of something a little bit more interesting, which is kind of crowd pooling. And what I'd love for the platform to do is to be able to capture all the different types of capital that's coming into it. So we can quantify, the wisdom that's being able to show up, the spiritual capital, the knowledge capital, land, and, the financial capital, dollars, etc. So that everyone can come together and bring what value they have, and for it to be able to be seen and reflected back with, ownership of the village. But then we see things like Constitution DAO that, almost overnight, they raised $40 million to try to buy the Constitution, Infinite Garden on Mirror, a crowdfunding campaign for an awesome video about Ethereum and what's going on there. So this is kind of the model, is we could use these crowdfunding platforms already to grow and issue tokens. Let's not try to reinvent any wheels. And then we can get projects kind of started. And big key here is, I'm always thinking on the Renaissance side, which is like, how do we bring the land back into common stewardship? I love the idea of, if our new civilization gives rights to land and gives rights to nature. So they're sitting at the table just like a human would. And we actually have a human board that's making decisions for nature as well. So a river has, personhood. A river could sue other people if it gets poisoned, and there's a council. And this is happening in New Zealand right now, where a river was given personhood a few years ago. And that river is engaged in lawsuits right now with people who are harming that river. So I think that's really cool, is, giving the land its own sovereignty again. So when we buy that land and we bring it into common ownership, that we then return to stewards rather than owners. And I think that's a really powerful piece of what we're doing here, is, demonstrating what land stewardship looks like versus, exploitation and ownership. So I'm just quickly going over kind of the model and where we're at. Next after that is, okay, the villages come together, they've raised all their funds, they've bought their land. Great, now they need to coordinate to actually, build that village and get things done. They need roles, they need to issue tokens, they need to make decisions and govern. And Sam, this is where I want to bring you in and everything you guys are building, because this fits right in. So if we were working with you, we're, closer, whatever the name you have it being called right now, is helping us and helping villages kind of come together and coordinate and use those tools. I'm sharing this from the Haifa's perspective right now. Okay, we keep losing everyone. There you go, we're back, Sam. So I'm sharing this from Haifa's perspective right now, where the financial goal is it's all kind of about tokens. So that's what you're first governing, is you're governing those tokens, which is representing ownership of the land and access to the project, or whatever it is, whatever each village designs their tokens to be. So then the financial goal is for all the members to, increase the value of their token and work together to make that happen. And they do that by creating a more valuable village or project or whatever they're doing. Cool. So that's the general idea. There's a piece for seeds to fit in and help build, bring new stable currencies. This is one piece I think is really valuable. We have this model, I'm not going to get into it, but it's the idea of a constant currency. So it's basically, how do we have currencies that are anti-inflationary, that are actually holding their purchasing power? And we can use a combination of asset-backed currencies and land-backed currencies paired with treasury-backed currencies. So people are actually putting money into a bank, and then pairing that with some of the DeFi, Web3, interest-bearing stuff happening right now, to be able to come up with this new kind of primitive that can help currencies maintain their value. So using part of the interest and stuff gained to pay back the loss of inflation that's happening with the dollar. So one way of thinking about it is someone trades their dollars for this, and instead of losing 7 to 12% purchasing power every year, they gain 7 to 12% on their dollar every year. I'll pause there because that was a whole lot of stuff. Marc, go.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff. Would love to read more about like almost like a white paper around that, just like to understand
totally. I'll share
that
it with
and start to, that would be great. And then the kind of innovation, or the thought that I have around this, and I think I brought this to you when we first spoke, was, is there a way where we can geotag these locations, right? These 12 villages or whatever village that is then in this ecosystem, that as people show up with a wallet on their phone, they start literally mining the currency by literally just through the number of minutes or hours or whatever it is that they're there. Because here's the way I see it. We see proof of work in the world of crypto as super valuable, but proof of work in the world of eco-villages is you're literally there. And whether you're physically working, meaning like physically shoveling something or planting food or building something, or you're just hanging out, I think there's value to the entire eco-village from a communal perspective, because you're building the community. You're literally, by physically being at the community, you're building the community to begin with. And you're essentially, you're possibly consuming things from the village. So the longer you spend time there, the likelihood that you buy something from the village or or contribute to the economy. The likelihood you pick up a shovel and actually do something or whatever it is in that category is also there. And or the likelihood that you like share, you know, stories on Instagram. All of that has value to the village, and it is the most democratic way of showing proof of work and proof of stake of sorts, because you're literally staking it with the most democratically like it's the most democratic thing of all time is time.
Proof of
Right?
presence.
No one person can have more of it than the next, and it's immutable from the perspective that there's no way you can buy more of it, if that makes sense. Like it will only get created in that way. That's so anyway, it's a bit of an experiment around how that would work, but what it also does is that it puts everyone who wants to hold that currency as you know, outside of that circle. And then the people who can sell that currency are the people who physically show up to the community. So you're essentially becoming a net importer into the community consistently. For every time somebody who's on Binance wants to buy the coin just because they want to speculate on it, fine, I don't care. But then that money it's generally being sold by someone who was in the village to begin with, if that makes sense. That's a thought that I've had.
I want to give space for others to respond, but a super quick response. I love that model, and inevitably what's going to happen, and what I really hope happens, is for us to have a lot of different models. You know, I'm sure all 12 of the villages can have a slightly different one, or maybe even a majorly different one. I'd love for us to be as impartial about what model's the best for the first couple seasons, at least. I think the biggest value we can bring to the world is templating, you know, successes. But in order for us to do that, I think we need to remove the veil of what's good and what's great here, and just kind of, you know, go back to some of the drawing boards and test some assumptions. But no, I love that idea, and I think that'd be great for, you know, if Valhalla wanted to test that model.
Well, yeah, I like, honestly, I'm not smart enough, or I haven't, well, I'll rephrase that. It's like, I haven't done enough thought, and I'm not like super versed on all the exact white papers and strategies around how the DeFi space is working or certain things are working. But what I can tell you is that very on the ground, from a social perspective, it creates a lot of like, equanimity if people are like, well, you're not getting paid as much as I am, but you're also not showing up as much as I am. And so it kind of creates this scenario where, because there are always people who work harder in certain moments than others. And that creates tension if everyone's getting the same thing or has access to the same things, right? So we can't, like, I don't think we can approach it from like let's say a socialist or communist, let's say, framework or mindset, but we also can't approach it from a pure capitalistic mindset either.
I'd be happy to jump in and share like our model for TDF, because I think it can be relevant for the conversation. Basically, what we're doing is we're tokenizing space-time at TDF. So we're tokenizing how many rooms are available times how many nights per year. And then you can like choose what type of accommodation and this kind of stuff. But basically, the total supply corresponds to the total occupancy of the space. And so in that way, when we invite people to buy tokens, it's the same as equating to buying time. And then what they have to do is to stake their tokens in order to actually get the right of use. And so when they stake the token, now they're contributing to the project by covering for operating expenses, but there's no profit involved. They're all splitting the cost of the project equally. And so the expectation, the cost of living would go down over time as we would do that. And yeah, I don't know, I just felt like that resonated with what you just said earlier.
No,
and the only piece on top of that is that so then the way to actually check in to TDF is you can either contribute through staking tokens, or by doing volunteering work, or by stewarding the place, or by organizing events, and all these kind of value-added items.
But
so
well,
that's how you can.
That's exactly right. And now any action, big or small, hours long or minutes long, is now being valued, right? Like it's being valued in some way, shape, or form. And it's not just like, because different villages have different inputs for different reasons, right? Like, for example, at Valhalla, we don't have a ton of bedrooms at the moment, but what we have is a lot of people showing up all the time for periods of time. And so the check-in to me also can happen automatically because it's a geofence location. So as long as you have the app or some app, something that's on your phone, the second the phone comes onto the property, it's now mining. Now, how do you get that app? Or is there maybe a member requirement for getting paid? Or maybe there's like, if you're a member, you get paid more, or you get more of the coin because you're not just a volunteer, you're a volunteer that has gone through a certain number of hours, or but all of that can be gamified and tracked within that app as well, right? Like the app now says this person is now qualified for certain things, or is qualified to lead projects because they've spent 1,000 hours at the farm, for example, right? Because you're not going to just give away let's say, ownership of a project to somebody who just showed up for the first time ever. But being able to qualify that and even just see like a live chart of like the number of people, because I always say like Valhalla success is measured in number of steps taken on the farm. I say that all the time. It's one of the KPIs in Valhalla that I think matters. But then I don't know how many that is. I can't see a live tracking of that. But if I could, that would be super valuable. And the
getting access to health metrics from the phone.
well, sure, but even beyond, let's say the health metrics, even somebody who's joining the community who doesn't know the other people in the community, now they see the leaderboard of like, oh, this person over here and that person over here clearly is here all the time. They're clearly people I can ask questions to, and so there's like so much value in multiple ways as to what I think that can do. And it's anyway, it's just it's definitely a thought that I've had around a model. And I love what you said there, Rieki, about like we can have multiple models for different villages, but the point is that we have to test it, right? We have to put it out there and see what and how that works.
Well, and so I'd connect you with SourceCred, and I want to bring them into this anyway. And they'd probably be happy to build that if they don't already have that, but it's similar to a lot of tools they're providing. The problem is that we're dealing with social sciences, not hard sciences. So any model that might work in the States, for example, might completely fail in Africa and vice versa, and everywhere in between. So that's where I think I want to set a standard of what we could be doing to provide the most value. And that's trying to figure out what are the primitives. And that's kind of the exploration I'd love to do together. So we kind of uncovered one primitive, which is the ability for anyone who contributes to an organization to get value reflected back out. That was a primitive we thought of. We've kind of unpacked. Every community wants that. They want to do it a little bit differently, but they all want that basic concept. Cool. So let's build tools to support that basic concept in a diversity of ways. There's other primitives like that across villages. So I think that's kind of our goal here, is to find those patterns that are resonating across successful projects and try to find out what's the root of that pattern that's succeeding, and then build tools that help amplify that and pattern that out. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that we do as a collective, is that we're building those primitives again, rather than saying this is the best way to do it. We say this is, the tool set that's giving you the ability to explore that. And then the second layer of value I think we could add is then templating it. So we say here that 20 different templates for different types of villages that we've seen succeed, and then we can help villages kind of kickstart and get going a lot.
And it's open source, like
100%.
It's all documented. It's all available. Here's what we did. Here's how we did. It worked. Here's how we change it. So on and so forth. And the gamification of it. Because
and of course you can always debate those ideas beforehand as well. Like you can apply, like you can take the two ideas and mash them together and then come up with a third model before you even tried it out and wasted all those resources trying to build it.
Totally. Yeah. I'm still in the mapping. Like I'm in like I have this idea, but I know that there's like really smart tokenomics out there and kind of, systems that are out there. And I just don't know how or where that combines. And I'm really trying to make, I guess like the main thing I'm trying to make is that the world of finance and the world of operations is it's cohesive. Because I think what's happened is in the crypto space, we've seen a lot of like the world of finance really working well. And it's like, okay, this is great. Finance is great for speculation, but it's not particularly operationally interesting. And I think that's where, you're right. Like iterating on that. That's where I'm at anyway. And I just need a presence. I do have to leave here in a minute. I have a hard stop for another call, but I'm super happy to kind of like iterate on that many times over.
Excellent. Well, I'll let you end with your hard stop. I want to give some time with Sam to share anything to you before you go. And then this is the time Sam and I were supposed to be talking. So pass it to Sam.
Well, I mean, I think those conversations are awesome. And, you know, I would love to hear more of these kind of conversations during Rebuild. We're organizing Rebuild online on March 18 to 21st, 2022. And yeah, I mean, I would love to have these conversations. We've been having this kind of model just pitching basically for the last, I think, 3 years with different people starting villages and these kind of rural communities and so on. And I think it's just like so powerful to just like show everything openly, what you're working on, how you're thinking about it, and then just seeing like what are the best practices, what can we learn from each other, and how can we collaborate, and just shifting into that collaboration mode. So yeah, happy to stay in touch and
super happy to do that. Yeah. Well, okay, for me, a beautiful next step would be reading some of that white paper stuff that you have, Rieki, around like that flow. And beyond even the paper, is there like an actual model, like a Google Sheets where you guys like input this somehow or calculated things like this? Like it would be I'd be willing to go to the level of like the calculations and even seeing like how would I incorporate math into this that would even try and iterate what that is, right? But Samuel, I would love to, continue to have the conversation around that. Super happy to contribute if it's of any value by any means.
100%. Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat and feel free to reach out and we can have more model conversations.
There's mine.
Cool.
Thanks. All right, guys. I need to head out, but man, fascinating. I love
just the beginning.
Yeah, totally. Just the beginning. I agree. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys soon.
Cool. Cheers.
Nice to meet you. Bye bye.
Hey Sam.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Good. Yeah, you too. You're looking good.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm on a little break in Denmark, just for the holidays, and then I'll be heading to Mexico and Costa Rica next.
Well, okay, so Lucian just popped in. Maybe we can have Lucian share goodbyes as well, and then we can have our call.
Sounds good.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to loop back. I've got to run, so we're going to take off in a moment. But Sam, great meeting you. And
nice to meet you as well.
I'll leave you some thoughts on this. The lights are gone out here, so we're taking off. So happy, if we don't speak before, have a happy Christmas, happy holidays, and let's touch base. I'll leave a voice note with you about some immediate things.
Perfect. Sounds good, brother. We'll talk soon. Good
Happy
luck with that
holidays.
flight.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Sam. You take care,
brother.
Bye bye.
Ciao. Live from the fight.
Epic humans. Yeah, so those are just there's two of the few people that we're bringing together to try to do this. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, again, grounding back into, I shared it with you already. I'm not going to do it again, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
Well, I would love to see more of what you've been working on since last we talked, because I guess we haven't really connected since summer so much. And also, like, congrats with it's a son, right?
Yeah.
And he's 6 months or something?
No, not, well, 6 months pregnant. Yeah, so she's actually 5 months. He's doing.
Okay. I thought you had him already. I was
No.
confused.
We're about to. So my plan, I would love to have him in the village, like that's been my dream for me. But anyway, we'll see if it happens. So I have till April to kind of do that.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I started everything with, seed, Taifa, and my journey into crypto. I mean, all of it was for villages. That's where I started a decade ago. It's where my real passion's at. It's, how do we scale these things? That's all that, the crypto piece is. It's just how do we replicate it, scale it, coordinate together. That's kind of the whole exploration. But I feel like I kind of got trapped in a rabbit hole for a while, got a little bit too deep in there. And then when I noticed all the conversations were financial and we're spending like months talking about a token price, I was like, time out, wait, no, whoa, hold up. We were supposed to be doing villages. Like, let's get back to that. So this is, I started focusing on that last couple months and it was that combination of mushrooms. And I did anytime I get lost, I go and do a vision quest type journey and, kind of let that guide me. And it was super clear that it's just get back to villages. The tools are there.
Amazing.
Weave them in and just.
I mean, it's so powerful because, it's like, I feel, to me, that's my biggest critic of the whole crypto space is that it's so fucking gimmicky and gamified and it's also digital. And it's like, why? Like, I mean, it's good. Like now we kind of learning, like we're progressing the technology, but at the same time we also need to start taking action and moving that to the real world and creating like positive externalities from what we're doing with crypto, not just. So yeah, I mean, actually, that's 100% why I got interested in Seed last year, because that's what you were describing, like creating those positive externalities from the crypto space, from a currency. And there's not many currencies that are doing that currently. And yeah, like when I've been talking to people about this NF3 project that we wanted to do, I mean, we kind of dropped that because there's like 1 billion projects doing that kind of stuff right now, which is super cool. So we're probably just gonna use like some technology that's already been built to do that within the context of villages.
Well, and that's how I feel too, is, there's so many teams moving so far with lots more development. Like, I don't think I was meant to do that. That wasn't my piece to play. We needed to get the conversation going and the ball rolling. But I think our piece is let's get this really practical of how it pairs together with physical villages, because I say there because I'm referring to the whole DAO space as another entity, but they're designing, coordination tools in a vacuum all around, how do we get dollar go up, which might be fine, but that could, exacerbate the worst parts of capitalism. Like it could go in the exact opposite direction, So I think we really needed to, because we started getting into the deep philosophical design questions and started tinkering with that stuff in Seeds and Haifa, but we're doing it from a position of, we need a token to be flat, or we need the price to be this. It was very, it was just too superficial. It wasn't grounded in anything real, So that's what I think we needed to have physical villages and come into space and like rebuild our relationship with Gaia before we go and start tinkering with economic protocols that, so now we're not screwing ourselves up or coming from an inspired place. So that's kind of where I felt the need to kind of, at least in my life, pull the emergency brake and be like, nope, stop, need to ground first before we take this next chapter,
Yeah, totally. So I think this is a really exciting time for us to meet, really. I think it's a really exciting time for us to meet, because I feel like so I started OAS 4 years ago, and so it's been like slowly like mutating into this latest version of itself. But really, like I think the last year or two, that's really when this whole like regeneration piece really like started to click along with the crypto piece. And it's like I feel like we have all the pieces now. We have the technology, we have the traction, we have the spaces, we have the events, we have basically all of the tools to bring it together and really transition into like a new system. Like this whole year I've been living at traditional Dream Factory in Portugal, and it's really like we were in a separate parallel little society, like we had our own like food supply from the local farmers, regenerative farmers. We knew like how the bread is made, like where the grains are grown, like all of this, and we're just like having these amazing meals every single day because we had a huge industrial kitchen. We're set up to host 100-person events, and we had all these amazing events. Like especially the last 3 months, we were set up to host like over 100 people. So we hosted Rebuild, we hosted Primal Gathering, we hosted Re-Encrypt. So Re-Encrypt was about crypto, Primal Gathering was about planting 1,500 trees on the lands, and Rebuild was about building villages, obviously. And so basically just learning by hosting these kind of events and just inviting the right people. And yeah, it's been quite amazing. And so now like I had like a really cushy job I was working for like a cybersecurity company in the last 5 years, and I finally quit literally like last week. I was like, okay, now it's enough. Like, even if I'm only working like 1 hour a day to do this full-time job and just like hanging out and just kind of cruising for the last 2 years, it's also time to like just move on and just really focus. And really my focus is those 3 DAOs. So Closer, it's all the tech for villages. Rebuild, it's events and connection for villages. And TDF, it's the first village we're doing. So those are like the 3 DAOs that I'm 100% committed to for this year, and well, for probably the many years to come, really. Yeah, and so for me, it's like definitely like the beginning of like being full time on this, being like 100% committed, and really like having a super clear vision. And I know where I'm going, and like we have all the right people in the network, so it really feels amazing to be in that space. And yeah, and Closer just got funded also. We got a grant. So that means that we have some capacity to pay for people over the next 6 months and basically build the MVP. I really want to have it live by March because that's when we reopen TDF. So I want to have it live with Closer functionality, being able to book, being able to create events. So the event piece is also for Rebuild, which is happening in March. So Rebuild is a Closer community. TDF is a Closer community. Redundance with Livia that I just mentioned before to Lucian. She has this regenerative leadership community in Portugal. So I'm creating a platform for them as well. And then we have like Remote Burn and other communities that I kind of onboarded from previous events and so on that we did. So basically we have 10,000 people that are using the platform without knowing it yet.
Wow.
But I think we can really scale that up to like way more people and give them the tools, just a social media platform, mighty network replacement, something like super simple, good looking. You can do your social media on there, talk to people. All the chats would go through Matrix. I don't know if you know Matrix that Elements is built on.
Yep.
So that's kind of the idea, using this kind of decentralized systems that already exist. We don't have to worry about security. We don't have to worry about protocols and so on. We're just an interface and we just connect to it. And then adding slowly like the layers so you can manage physical spaces, and then adding the layers so you can do governance. And at some point we would probably integrate DAO tools and stuff like that. But I think initially it's really important to just really focus on the physical and how do we actually run TDF as a physical space, and starting off with being off chain and just developing like quick iterations, really focusing on building this amazing UI for this kind of communities that might transition into physical villages at one point. Because there's all these like burner festivals, all these kind of communities out there that really, they've been really transitioning to villages kind of by force over the last couple of years, because people have just been throwing all these festivals around the world in the woods, smaller groups, like 100 people. They see the villages. Right now they call themselves events, but really what they want is to do that all year round if they could.
Totally. Yeah, it's sustainable.
So
I'm super in love with that share. Thank you. that explains a little bit the glow, because when you show it up, I'm like, dang, you're looking good. Now it makes sense. The last few months have just been a joy. It sounds like Closer is building the one layer of technology. Perfect. So I'd love to just have Closer be that tool that we're working with. So we don't know what it is for launching their token, but probably just some ETH platform. Then we're using the Do or whatever DAO they want to use. It doesn't matter. Haifa is building custom built tools for this, but again, it doesn't matter then, because all of it's going to mirror to Ethereum anyway. Haifa does as well. And they can just do their governance and everything. And then we can point you to the other coordination and organization, events management, and all that piece. And then Regen Villages for the ecological data. And then we're also plugging into Regen Network to do the same. So we're trying to bring all of these pieces. All the pieces exist. That's what I'm trying to say, is they all exist. Let's just bring them all together, and then let's template out 12 different examples. So that's who I'm talking with is, Marc's a guru at doing, short videos and social media. He's built up a ton of multi-million follower Facebook groups and stuff and been part of that. So He's awesome from that lens. Lucian's a super connector, you know, like for example, he's bringing in the guy doing Fly Ranch, which is the Burning Man village. Do you know Fly Ranch?
Yeah, they pitched at Rebuild.
Say again?
They presented the village at Rebuild, Fly Ranch.
Well, okay, so that's the other piece you said is Rebuild's launching in March, right?
Well, Rebuild online. So actually what we're doing with Rebuild is we're decentralizing the whole organization. It's also becoming a DAO. And actually, we're not just having one Rebuild next year, but actually we're doing a bunch of Rebuilds. It's going to be Rebuild Netherlands, Rebuild UK, Rebuild Portugal, maybe Brazil, whatever. And actually we found kind of the sweet spot. When we hosted it at TDF, it was 120 people. And it really was the size of a village. And it was in a village being built. So actually what I really want is to be Rebuild, be the festival that goes to every village that gets built. And it makes so much sense because we can build in like a pre-built team, ship in a container, all the tools, all the stuff that you need to build out the basic infrastructure, which is what we did at TDF, building like 4 dry toilets, 6 showers, like all of the basic stuff. And then once that's done, then you can host events forever for like 100 people, and you're set up.
Oh man.
So that's really like part of the physical pieces.
Well,
so
I don't
really
want to
how I'm
reinvent that
connecting.
wheel then. I mean, if you watched any of the other conversations, that was coming up all the time with different names, Party with a Purpose or a Village Incubator or whatever. I mean, there's so many of that. Perfect. So I'd love to just do that with Rebuild. If you want to help
Awesome. Yeah.
use the Rebuild for each one of these villages as they launch. So we hone in on them, launch it, and go through that process. And then again, we want to make this into a document.
And Rebuild is a DAO. So actually, well,
Yeah,
I would love to get your opinion on the tokenomics of it at one point. But what I'm thinking is, so basically Rebuild was mostly 5 people, 5 core members. I'm one of them. Nico is one of them. He's doing a La Tierra in Costa Rica. Anton is one of them. He's doing projects in the UK. Annie is one of them. She's my partner for TDF. And Victor is a partner, and he's also in Portugal. And everyone is building villages, and everyone is doing it. And so the model that we are hoping to do for the future is basically anyone that hosts a Rebuild event is going to earn some Rebuild tokens that gives them a stake in the DAO. And in exchange, they're giving 20%, 10 to 20% of their revenue to the Rebuild organization. And they can just sell the tickets directly on Rebuild. We provide all the marketing support, tech support, all the stuff. And by the way, Rebuild is a closer platform.
Awesome. That's really cool. I love that. So by attending any event or putting on events, then you get the governance tokens, which then helps govern that 5% you're paying back or whatever it is anyway.
Exactly.
I have a social, well, this is something we'll have to experiment with, but I have a belief that once this gets going, that 5% can turn into 30% and people would still be happy paying it. So I think in some way we'd actually be able to generate more revenue and people would be more happy paying more fees if they could see where it was going. They had a voice in that. They could see the power of collectively pooling funds, and it benefited them, Go on.
100%. So actually what we want to do is have 10% flat fee on any event. So, I mean, if you did it on Eventbrite, I don't know what the charge, but they charge some percentage anyway. But in exchange, you get tokens into the organization. So actually you're not paying anything, you're just investing in yourself. And then the second thing is you're able to give an additional 0 to 10%, you can choose, to a fund, a Rebuild fund, so like a community managed fund that would just invest in all the village projects in whatever we think makes sense to invest in.
100% yes. And I just wanted to do quick research for us. Eventbrite is anywhere from, it's around like 6% on average, and then like $1 per ticket, or like 50 cents per ticket. So something like that. Anyway.
Exactly. So for charging a little bit more, you get your money back as an investment in the companies that create that investment.
Not even the companies, the movement, the networks,
the movement,
the economy that you get to join. Like it's that's what I'd love.
Exactly.
All the pieces, right? Well, where are you at right now with so I gave you a little bit of a feeling in what we're weaving in. How do you see it, us best weaving together? What could be most valuable to you? Yeah.
I mean, so what I talked about this summer is like, I really felt like Haifa was really confusing, and I didn't understand like Haifa / you, like how you wanted, or Haifa wanted to get involved in Closer. And so to me, like, that was always confusing. So I think it's a new invitation, and what I would love to hear is having you on board with Closer. And then, if that means building stuff with Haifa down the road, potentially. But really what I would be interested in is having you contributing to Closer, and not necessarily being stuck on what Haifa has built so far, like the do and so on. Like, we really wanted to try it as a tool internally for the Closer DAO. But I mean, there's so many tools out there right now that I think it also makes sense to just try everything and just see what is gonna stick, basically. And then I think we can really build like some really cool tech, and which means that I don't want to commit to any single blockchain or anything. So I think of Closer much more just as a standalone UI that can plug into a bunch of blockchain ecosystems as needed. And so, for example, if the Haifa do is the software that we want to use for a village in order to do the governance, then maybe that's an option. But that would kind of maybe be like a plugin you put on top of this Closer system. That would be more interoperable, and just giving you those options. And I think, and also like I really want to iterate quickly and really get this out. Like I said, by March, I want to have the MVP. So really, like, I want to have like a small close-knit team that's like consistent with it. I mean, this summer, I think we had a good flow. Like, we had these UX calls and so on. And I think we were kind of like in the divergent sensing phase, like seeing what we actually want to do and so on. I think now it's time to go into the convergent phase and just focus, really like highlight on what is a core critical functionality and just like knock it out. And I already set up like the core tech infrastructure. I'm going to be the lead UI developer on this. And then, I'm inviting other people to start contributing. I would love you to meet. Well, actually, you met Eugenio Battaglia in Berlin. He's now part of the project.
Excellent.
So
that's cool. Yeah.
So I would love you to.
Together is just incredible too. Oh, go on.
Sorry.
I was just saying the humans you brought together for Closer now is what it is. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Are awesome. Just pointing that out.
Yeah. No, I think it's a nice team, and I think like by having this like I want to have like really cookie cutter focus on like this is the functionality we're delivering, and just doing like super quick prototyping and really focusing on building an awesome UI, and then trying to plug into different decentralized backends in the back, but not limiting ourselves to any single system. So that's kind of how I see things, and
absolutely love that. And what I'm just for clarity, that what we're putting together right now and the calls I'm having, it's not Haifa necessarily. Haifa is wanting to build tools for this, just like Closer is wanting to build tools for this, just like a lot of projects are. What I'm trying to form right now is this, more of a neutral layer where it is that alliance. I'm still trying to come back to form that alliance. We all know we need to do it. It's just we have a hard time doing it. So this is another attempt to try to come together, be like, no, we all have some awesome piece we're playing. Let's actually plug it together, form this, commons layer. So that's still what I'm trying to do. So I think the relationship with Closer is perfect. And actually, I would like how I put it in my modeling is every village just kind of picks for themselves. We say these are the brands and groups we work with. Right now, Closer is the only one doing what you guys are doing. So you would be the sole provider from that lens. But yeah, I would like to do it from an ecosystem perspective and then help a diversity of projects and then blueprint it and map it and help us connect together. Because again, my bias, like my end goal, what I'm trying to achieve is a network of villages across the globe. So I could very selfishly take my child to them and they can meet incredible people. And, I don't have to send them to public school and they can learn from all sorts of humans across the globe in beautiful villages. So I'm trying to get to that
And-
vision as quick as possible, and I think this is the route there.
And the last piece to that is to get from village A to village B, we just need a network of ships that we can sail with, and that's already existing with ocean nomads. I don't know if you heard of them.
Oh, the ships one. Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, that's kind of my dream, having these kind of network of villages. So like Oasis is limited in scope. Like we want to build 10 villages around the world that have the same kind of culture, the same 300 members, so that you can kind of have your tribe feeling. You can bump to the same people and all that kind of stuff. But then the goal is to scale by replication, so to let other people just fork what we did, do their own version of it, do their own culture, their own rules, and so on, and then be able to have connections with them. So then you can, if you have like, and we have so many now that we are being advisors of or like connected with. So imagine like frequency village in the Azores, we have La Tierra in Costa Rica, there's a different village projects in Brazil, in the UK, in France, and basically everywhere they're popping up. And now like what you can do is in hyper terms, you would like create a badge. So you say, oh, like this person is part of this village. I think you probably mentioned that on some of your videos. And then just being able to, because what we have at TDF is we have like different kind of involvement categories. So either you can be a steward, or you can be a citizen, kind of like you have within Seed also, or you can be just like a guest, or you can be like coming to do some work, like volunteer, or you can be, you have all these different roles. And then some of them would be, just coming from another village. So I'm coming from, I don't know, like from the hyper village in Bali, and I would like to somehow get into the TDF village. And now you can just kind of, have a kind of conversion rate between you have like two tokens, for example, like DeFi village exchange protocols.
Yeah, 100%. On all the different levels too. So we're mapping out a material library. So how do you get rid of the tragedy of the commons of sharing items if there's no cost of you damaging that item or whatever? So we figured out a bunch of ways of doing that. But basically you'd have membership into that village, library pool. You could sell your stake to someone else coming into the village and buy their new stake in the new library. So it's a lot of the things. It's the village tokens, these library tokens. It's basically, you can just like pack up your investment in one. Or it would be really cool is if we actually federated and your investment in one was an investment in kind of all of them. So you don't even have to sell it. You can just move and it transfers across. That could be where it's really interesting.
And Index Co-op?
Yeah.
So I'm talking with them sometimes the next couple of weeks about that. This would be like, I'll be back. This would be like way down the road, but creating this kind of like index token that represent a basket of villages, and then you can basically.
Well, that's what we want to do here with this alliance that we're putting together. Because if the alliance is taking 5% of all the ones it launches, and so 5% of the revenue for the shared treasury pool, and then 5% ownership of every village, then owning the commons tokens is by define owning 5% or a share of 5% of all the villages. So it becomes the index. So the index is that ecosystem token. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think you don't have to limit yourself to saying it's 5%, because you have villages that are way more expensive than others.
Sure.
So I think rather than just having an exchange between two village tokens allows you to have more flexibility. Now, if you just have like a DeFi pool in between the two things, that means that they can still have their own economics. One of them might fail while the other one succeeds. Like, I think it's good to align incentives, but it's also good to make sure that, they can be an evolution. And if something is not working out, you should move on to the next system and so on.
100% agree. So I think maybe you thought I was saying something else, but yeah, no. So what I was saying is, yes, I agree. Every village has their own token and their own tokenomics, but the index one is if there is the ecosystem, let's call it the Village Alliance or whatever, it has a Village Alliance token. Okay. And it has its own tokenomics too. But this Village Alliance, every project it's incubated and launched and connected with, it owns a share of all of those villages that's sitting in the Village Alliance treasury. So owning a Village Alliance token is owning a fractional share of all of the villages that it's, you know, connected with. So that's what I said is this ecosystem token, whatever it is the index token. So if you're talking about index co-op to do it, awesome. We can partner with them to, you know, actually build the tool. But that index token is the ecosystem token in my perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can even do like multiple ecosystem tokens. Like you can have
that's true.
The rebuild ecosystem token with villages picked by rebuild members, supported by rebuild in some way or another. Maybe every single village that hosts that rebuild, they get to have some kind of involvement with a rebuild DAO, and therefore like getting rebuild tokens would mean getting a stake in all of the villages that rebuild has supported throughout the years.
And see, this is the part of DeFi that I love, is the resiliency that could come from it rather than the fragility, because part of DeFi is doing let's do leverage on leverage on leverage and redo exactly what Wall Street did in 2008 to collapse the system there. So it's like, come on, guys, you know, this is why crypto started, was to prevent this from happening. You know, why the other side, especially with indexes, is making financial systems more resilient, because then if one project fails, the whole ecosystem doesn't have to. So I think that's really powerful to start creating these tools en masse. And yeah, I mean, closer the ecosystem we're building, this is it. This is what I'm wanting to do, is to create all of these different tools, be the, you know, the ecosystem for this renaissance to happen, you know.
So what would you like to contribute to Closer? How would you see your role? What would you like to play?
So for Closer, sure, I would love to come in and bring roadmaps, things that we'd like to have.
Amazing.
You know, user testing. I mean, I am a user, so it's, you know, this is what the villages need, kind of helping with prioritizing what tools are out there, because I'm engaging in a lot of villages. I'm working with their governance and their operations, what's working, what's not. And then also being a general salesman. I mean, I'm working with villages and I'm their tool stack to say like, hey, these are the tools that will be able to support you. So it's those lenses. If you're looking traditional,
a regenerative salesman. I never heard that before, but that's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah,
I mean, we do need to. I mean, in order to transition faster, we need to have smarter marketing tactics than the current system, basically. So it's all part of it.
Excellent. What else are you thinking?
I mean, I think that sounds amazing. So really our goal is to kickstart, I think January 6th is going to be our first meeting as Closer, where we do like a 6 months run on actually building those tools with the goal to have the first prototype up by March at the latest, maybe even before. And yeah, I mean, I think we should just get started. So yeah, and like I said, we got 50K grant to get started for the first 6 months. We have some really nice people. We're probably gonna need to get more developers and stuff like that at some point. But like I'm there to do the UI support, and I think that's the most like critical piece, because like I said, I think we should try to actually plug into multiple backends and kind of Web3 exploration. It's more for V2. I think for V1, basically I already have all the APIs and all the Web2 tech built out from OASA. So we can already basically launch on that in Web2. And as we prove that certain tools are needed and that we verify the business logic and actually the villages are testing it out and so on, then we can migrate it to Web3. And then we will decide what we want to build on. And I'm pretty keen on exploring even stuff like fully custom chains like Cosmos and so on, like really take it to the next level, not really locking ourselves into any chain or whatever. And definitely in whatever we do blockchain wise, I think what's really the key is interoperability. So being on stuff like, whether it's Cosmos or whether it's Polkadot, stuff where you can really bridge to the rest of the ecosystem and be operable. I mean, Ethereum also, but I don't really like Ethereum for the future.
This is 100%. This is the direction, just because this is so alive. this is the direction we're going in Haifa and seeds. And what I think we should do here is this idea of it's called the narrow waist. It's kind of like the IP for the internet. But anyway, that interoperable layer. So this is where we're headed with Haifa anyways. We want to be interoperable with all the layer ones. It doesn't matter. They could choose their own layer one. We're building that middle layer. So we already actually built this. Is this document graph and has its own explorer and everything. It's just, it sorts down information more beautifully. So it's built, purposely built for storing down context information and using semantics to help sort that. And then we could just become compatible with any layer one. This is what I'd say we do for the movement too. We don't get stuck on any layer one or any particular, use case for it, which is what I think Lucian was saying. So yeah, villages are something here, but what we're building can work for anything, right? And I think we can take this same view with everything we're working on. Is this, yeah, you get it.
Yeah, amazing. No, that's 100%. Can we add a D village in the middle there? D community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the same approach I'd say we take, and approaching that with all the tech. The tech is tools. Like our tool belt is all the tools we need. Like the goal is regenerative villages and whatever tools help us get there. So I love that vision. Yeah, I think closer. I love that name. I would love to join one of your first meetings. So you said it's on the 6th. If you want to invite me to that, is it okay if a couple of the other people that are part of this, thing that's forming right now attend as well?
I would like to. So what I would like to make sure that we do this time is that instead of just adding random people, we kind of keep the closer team small, and then we as a group decide if we want to add someone. And then we slowly scale it up, because I really want to be super focused, like I said, on delivering this MVP. So I think it's really important that we really have kind of like a tech team. We don't spend hours discussing everything, but it's really about execution now, like narrowing that scope. We kind of already explored what we want to build over the summer, and now it's really time to execute and put it into something practical.
Yeah, then that's way better, and we'll use this other container for continuing the alliance discussions, and then closer can just be about tech and move fast. And yeah, I love that. So then I would love to pick that up. I really enjoyed that when I was doing it. It's just life got crazy, and anyway.
Yeah, no problem.
The calls
amazing. So
originally for so
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add you to we have just a Telegram group at the moment. And yeah, and then that's it. And then we're just gonna have calls starting January. And I think we're gonna kind of do what we had this summer. I think weekly or bi-weekly calls. And then we're gonna just have different calls for the different areas and so on, for development, for UX design and so on. But I mean, what we are doing, and actually I can share, we just reviewed today's we reviewed all the flows from the summer, and we decided what flows we want to focus on. So for March, we want to do this onboarding piece, which I basically built already, but just solidifying it into the platform. The booking functionality, so because that's something that we're going to need for March for TDF.
Yep.
And I have built it. I just need to kind of finish it, put it into the platform, design it. Summary emails, that's also half built. Events, this is also half built. And Rebuild is going to be a community that, for example, only implements events as its only kind of type of content. So I'm going to be adding a lot of features and stuff like that to that anyway. Quests and contributions, just because we're already doing construction work at TDF, and so we need to be able to distribute tokens for work that's being done in the space. And then that's it. And then most of the other things we are cutting out, and we're keeping for a second iteration. And we will see in 6 months what makes sense to use for governance, for village contribution accounting, for setting up token sales, all this kind of stuff. We're going to do some research on the health score for the village, checking what metrics and so on, but not committing to actually building it those 6 months. I think it's more important to just do the research properly, really think about what does it actually mean, what is important, Oh, I think you would love.
That's
I want to show
huge.
you.
Yeah, I would like to spend a lot of time on that as well.
I want to show you our end of year recap. Actually, I think you're gonna love it. There we go. Because I think there's one slide in here that you would like, and there's that you're the slide master. So. So yeah, we just did a little recap for TDF. So
Nice.
this physical village we're doing. And this is all the stuff that we're doing. Oh, this is a building, by the way. I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen
this is TDF.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's an old chicken farm with 1,500 square meters of buildings that we are renovating. And what I wanted to show you is our end of year.
An old chicken farm. I love that. So we have Marc taking industrial corn monocrop nonsense, and you taking industrial animal agriculture and shifting it into regenerative villages. It's so cool.
Exactly.
So cool.
And so this is our kind of impact graph for the year. And this is what we want to expand on. This is always sustainability values. So we took the ones from, I forget the name of the project, but they kind of simplified the UN ones a little bit into 10 categories. And then we made our own KPIs based on all of those things in those categories. So for example, energy, that we already set up like solar panels that supply basically all of our energy.
You know what I'd love to do? I would love to, even if it's rudimentary, it will be at first, put a point system to every single one of these. And it could be binary, have you accomplished it or not? Or, ratio of goods produced locally, that could be a scale, and just start doing this and actually have this up here, have some maps, have some points, use a freaking, Excel sheet to start off if we want, but actually have a leaderboard of villages like tracking this and, competing to try to beat these metrics. Yes. And also for showing it for, getting further.
Give him some wine, then he will speak louder.
Say again?
Meet my uncle. He said he's giving me wine, so I'll speak louder.
Super important. But anyway, no, I love the work done here, and I would love to just get started with that, actually making this and tracking it.
Awesome. So
maybe that's what I'll take on, unless you have someone else who is interested in putting points to this. But I'll put one to it.
I mean, I would love to build this into Closer and creating some kind of system around it, because I mean, this is what I want to measure ourselves on, measuring how successful we are. So 100%. So actually today we had yesterday we had a fun one for for culture and community. The ways that we measured it actually was we had a call, like end of year call with we had like 30 people or so on it, and then we just asked like, so how many people met someone at TDF this year? And we played that game, where you do like the connection game, but specifically around TDF. And so actually I think that could be a really fun way to do it in Closer, is to kind of have this kind of game where you say like, how many people did you meet at TDF this year? Like, how many people did you go and actually build projects with? Like, did you actually learn some new forestry skills while you were there, and so on? Kind of like trying to build those soft skills into the model and not just considering all the stuff that you normally consider, which we also listed a little bit here. Like, for example, this is some of the milestones that we did. Like, this is how much we spent on expenses. We already had revenue starting in October. We had about 350 people that came. We have 44 people that collected tokens so far. We had 12 events, and we planted 1,550 trees. But really, like the soft skills one are even more important. That's really what we want to optimize for.
Wow. Well done. So did you put that together?
The presentation, my partner Annie did it. She's awesome. By the way, she's also the one that came up with the name Closer. I mean, the goal of the platform was initially, it still is, but it's really to create closer knit communities instead of having these like giant social community platforms with billions of people. So just to have like more like this kind of small niche of like 100 to 300 people basically in each of those closer networks that are, so keeping it small scale and closer together, and being able to create these kind of internal economies and value exchanges through tasks or like through other ways to create value in those communities.
I mean, that's what it said to me when I read it. Just closer together. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of a protocol that popped up. It's like the 144 one. I really love. It's what Lucian's doing too at the up game. But I'm wondering about an actually community cap where you say, once you hit 144, you actually have to split. And we kind of you would force that in, because if you don't force it, then it does have the yeah, exactly. You're looking at it because there was a thing in a lot of different indigenous cultures. Once they reached a certain size, they would literally split the tribe. They'd say, okay, we're forking, and it was a bake.
That's amazing. Yeah, actually baking it into the protocol is such a good idea. I never thought of it.
Well, and it would create curation, because if the community was scared of forking, then they would make sure they're constantly curating, and having active metrics or whatever to stay part of that 144, or whatever it is.
I guess it's kind of like, I mean, in Facebook terms, I guess it's kind of like limiting you to 144 friends.
It's 100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and when you set that limit, and MySpace did it too with like their best friends list, if you remember that back.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't remember.
It had that similar effect where it's like, oh, you're part of my best friend group, and it was this very particular group. But it created more sense of meaning. It was more meaningful because it was exclusionary in that way. But since it's all open,
I think it's a really tricky territory to navigate, because it's like, for some of these communities, it kind of makes sense to be bigger. But I don't know, like for example, when we organized Remote Band, we had 6,000 people on the platform that joined in a month. But in a way, they were each kind of, Remote Band was kind of mimicking like a Burning Man.
Sure.
So we had like the Burning Man map, like the kind of use shape was an open circle thing. And so you had all the camps listed. We had 25 or 30 camps or something like that. And then within each camp, you could have different events. So we had this whole interactive experience. We had 270 events over 3 days.
Wow.
And so they would just pop up as notifications on this platform. And so you could hop into the different camps. So I guess Closer in a way is kind of like trying to design a platform for each of these camps in a way. And then you could have like a kind of meta structure on top of it with all of the camps. So you're free to hop into any of these kind of 144 person community, but only, I guess, for like a certain, I guess we can go back to the proof of presence that, what's his name, your friend? Marc mentioned?
Oh, yeah, Marc was talking about, yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. Like maybe you can have max 144 people physically together in the same camp at one time, and then you can stay for as long as you want, and then you just transition. I don't know. There's something there.
Yeah, interesting. I'm wondering if it's because I see the value of it. I'm just wondering if it's a setting that comes up front. So when you set up the community, just like Telegram, if it's an announcement channel or a group chat, right? You kind of do the same thing. Like I'm going to do a tight knit community, 144 max, or I'm building a very open community. We have no boundary, or we're building an ecosystem, whatever, of like it's got a max of 144,000 or whatever it is. So you can have these different max levels of the communities based off the intent going out. But of course, if things change, the community can, come together with a vote or whatever the policy is to, change that. But it would be nice if that was baked in and they could choose it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Making it an option, limited versus unlimited members.
So we're not forcing it on, but if anyone likes this protocol and they like the exclusiveness of it, because it's going to create a safer community too. I mean, there's so many other benefits that, people don't like it from the general sense that it feels like exclusionary, but it's not, because there's an abundance of groups. So, if that one's filled up, great, there's a million more to join. So
yeah, actually, I mean, if you think of it as like a replacement for Discord, for example, imagine if like the whole blockchain ecosystem, first of all, if you had a map and then you would see all these Discord groups with all those different crypto projects happening. But then you can only join the groups that actually need traction. And it's already been voted on that the map is kind of the optimal crypto space that we want to deliver. So then you kind of realign resources to the spaces that actually need resources. So that is pretty interesting.
Oh man. So anyway, we're at the tip of the iceberg of all of this stuff. So so this is why I wanted to weave you in, because I know we're building the same stuff. So let's make sure we're building it together.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm super stoked to have you on board with Closer. Eugenio told me that you guys met in Berlin once, so that's pretty fun. He showed up at Reencrypt, the crypto event that we organized at TDF, and it was really fun. Also, like Sarah from Regen Network came, and
no way.
they had all these amazing people showing up at our door, and it was like a small 30-person event, so it was like really fun. And we actually didn't have any time to plan it, because we hosted a big event the weekend before, planning those 1,500 trees. So actually it was just like a couple of tweets, and then like whoever needed to be there showed up, and it was amazing.
Yeah, see, this is what I want for my next few years, as long as it takes to build the movement. So I'm on board.
Amazing.
I think it's also my time to leave. They're calling for me.
Yeah. Well, this has been a super great catch up, and I guess next step is I'll add you to the group, and yeah, I guess for now we're just, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Mostly I guess it's going to be the Discord that we'll use going forward again, I guess. I'll add you to the kind of, I guess we're building like a new core team group on Telegram. And then we're going to have the call on January 6th or something like that. I'll make sure to add you. I would love you to meet Bia and to chat with Eugenio, and then we have a couple of us developers that are probably going to be contributing, but we haven't clearly defined their role yet.
Epic.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I'll join the January 6th one, and I'll keep you weaved in on this alliance type conversations, and you can be the representative from Closer, and myself. I'd love to be part of the Closer DAO.
Yeah.
For whatever it's worth. I mean, I assumed I was already, but just kidding.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just teasing.
We'll set up like the actual DAO structure at some point. Have you seen? I don't know. I was just sent. Oh yeah. So another thing I should mention actually is we're weaving together this movement called Refi Spring. So. Ooh. I don't know if you know like the Toucan protocol and these guys. So basically with some of the folks that came to Reencrypt, and then a bunch of other folks who are kind of working on refi around the world, we are starting this refispring.com. It lists already like I think 9 events, and the goal is just to have like as many events globally during the spring about refi, and really to boost the movement. And so Rebuild is going to be one of them, but there's all these other events in the US, across Europe, and so on and so on.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, share that with me, and I'd love to be part of that.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I can add you to that group as well.
Well, of course. See, I should have assumed there had been multiple veins that we're meant to be creating on too. So. And there's something else I'd love to plan for Closer, and all of this is an in-person event sometime next summer, where we bring together all of our projects and make sure we're actually plugging them in. And that'd be a really cool event style. Was everyone who's coming is representing some piece of the puzzle. Day one is we bring up all the pieces. Day 2, we like literally figure out how to integrate them, So we go through this process of like going manually through how to collaborate and get rid of all those barriers we build for ourselves that prevent us from collaborating, and like break down them. And by the end of the festival, people are clear where they fit in, how they get to contribute. They've got the connections, and we just
let's do it. If you want to host it in Portugal, you can do it at TDF.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's start planning it. I'd love to do it next summer. Give us some time.
Amazing.
To plan it, do it well, and cool. Well, here's the seed of that. There's also an event space in Central America wanting to do that, and I think they're wanting to move sooner, so we can do it in multiple places and kind of move. But yeah,
Awesome.
TDF, awesome, done. Sea Planet.
And and so my plans is to go to Costa Rica, might check out Hawaii, and I might come to the US a little bit. I wanted to go catch up on Sarah's project, and so yeah, so if you're around, and I don't know, it would be fun to meet in person.
Well, I'm in the States right now, and I don't know if I'm going to Costa
Yeah,
Rica.
yeah. So I might be stopping by the States, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. If you come here, please let me know. Let's definitely try to meet up.
Yeah. Cool.
Otherwise,
Awesome.
we'll be in
So,
Europe sometime next summer.
like around end of February, there's a chance that I'll be in the US.
I'm here.
Cool. Awesome.
I'll take you up into the mountains. We'll go hiking and snowshoeing.
Yeah, sounds good. Where are you again? You're like in
Utah.
Utah.
But we're living around, Denver, Boulder, Utah areas from this region. So if you come over to this way at all, let me know.
Yeah. And do you know Sarah as well from Regen Network?
Region? Yeah, we've had several calls.
Okay, nice. Because she's in Colorado, so I was thinking of visiting her project.
I forgot about that. I'm gonna reach out to her. Thank you.
Yeah, let me know. Maybe we can all meet there.
100%. If you're doing that, I would love to do that. And February is a perfect time. So yes.
Okay, so how about we organize a Refi Spring event at Sarah's place and we co-create it?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, why not? Just turn it into an event.
Well, I'm gonna make a Telegram group about this literally right now. So
perfect. Awesome.
Refi Spring, Colorado. Okay, and I'm adding you.
And yeah, and Sarah might have been the reason why we have some funding for Closer also. So
yeah, it's Sarah Johnstone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just making sure.
So that's connecting all the dots. And she's also doing the Numundo project.
Yeah, that's where we first started dealing with it, is because we were talking about acquiring Numundo.
Oh yeah, nice.
Years ago, back when, and then we were still trying to figure out where to weave it in, and that's where the whole village conversation started. And anyway, so we went down that rabbit hole and explored it, and now I think and we're right back to the tip of that rabbit hole again. So maybe it's a really great time to weave all that in. And
yeah, let's meet and talk about it. I feel like what I want to do is tie Closer to that potentially. I mean, because I like where Sarah wants to take it, and and it seems like it's not really been active in the last couple of years, and that they just want to reactivate it and kind of put the blockchain thing into it. So if Numundo, for example, became this platform where you can discover the different Closer communities, the platform is already there. You already have the audience, and now you can create your Closer community and then get listed on Numundo. And yeah, I don't know. That's some.
Could you share that in the Telegram group right now that we just made for the Refi Spring? And let's seriously, that'll be the gathering. Is we'll map this out, plug it all together. Let's prototype this concept of coming together, plugging the pieces, making the roadmap, and executing on it. Because this is similar to the ideas we had years ago with it. Is Haifa was going to take Numunda. Everyone was going to be their own do. They would have their own token. We'd have an exchange on the Numundo ecosystem platform there. Local Scale was plugging in to provide marketplace. I mean, it's all still there. It just needed more love and the right time.
Yeah.
This is now. Let's make it happen. All right, so then I guess I'm seeing you in February too. So
yeah, I mean, I think that would be really fun. I'd love to meet you in person. I really like these conversations. Getting a lot out of it for sure.
And in the middle of the winter in Colorado, we would be able to go up and go snowboarding and skiing. It'd be a great time. So Come on out, brother.
Perfect. Well,
Well, this was epic.
Sounds like a deal.
You know, beautiful catching up. I'm so in love with everything you've been doing, and thank you for all the joy you've brought to this call. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much. I'm super excited for everything we talked about. So looking forward to co-create.
Well, we already are.
All right.
Cheers, brother.
Nice to see you.
Enjoy
Ciao.
that wine. Have a beautiful day. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
You too. Cheers.